Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Game Society. I call this the tale of reviewing Core Keeper.
What is Core Keeper? Oh, so Core Keeper, it's such a great game. It is a survival sandbox game. It's a cutscene that starts. You're with a bunch of explorers. You go in there, you touch this big robotic thing, and boom, you're teleported into like the center of this world, and that's the core. And you kind of just go at it from there. You just kind of have to figure everything out. There's no tutorial really. You see a bunch of like statues. You see that you can craft some stuff, and then you just start going at it. You start mining. You start making a base. It is just fantastic. Oh, who am I? Oh, I'm just a video game player. Yeah, professional basement liver for 30 years. Yeah, I just play video games. It's great. Does Core Keeper have a gripping intro? Yeah, I would say it had a pretty gripping intro. You get your like a little cutscene. It wasn't like crazy with graphics, and then boom, you're like thrown into the game. You're like, okay, where's my like annoying tutorial? Where's like this stuff I have to click past, and then like you miss reading something, then you don't know how to do that until later in the game. Nope, this game just throws you in, and it feels good. It feels right. You know, you just like crafting. You start getting your materials. You're reading the statues. If you can figure that out, you go find a base or something. So I feel like that was like a good grip. Like it gripped me. It felt good. What do I think about the sounds in the game? I actually like them a lot. I would give it a 1 out of 1. Sometimes the mining noise can become a little droning, but I can hear my head ding, 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 and then just like the fishing, like the crunching of the food, and then like when your little pet animals eat food, I can hear it all in my head and not in an annoying way. Just like the weapons and how they make their little sounds. I don't even think they're like super complicated, but I just think they were like perfect and simple, and that was just great. Like I enjoy good sounds like that. You can obviously change the stuff in the settings. I did not go into the settings for sounds for this game ever. There are other games where I will like adjust music and ambiance and all that stuff just to fit how I want. If something's annoying, other than maybe when you're mining too much, it's a little obnoxious. But like every sound just felt like it had meaning. So like when I found my first ore boulder, I took my pickaxe, I didn't know what it was, and I hit it and it clanks off, and like you feel like, oh, I can't do that. It was like a perfect sound of you can't do this right now. You're gonna have to find another way. And then like the drills were great. Oh, the little like cart sound as you're wheeling around. Just all of it. It was just like I said, simply perfect. Where did I learn about Core Keeper? Actually, it was Asmongold. Oh, you don't know who Asmongold is? He's the Lich King. No. Doesn't do it. The Cockroach King. Still no? Oh. He's the one with the pet dead rat alarm clock? Yeah, that one. Yeah, so I remember that I think he was just like, I don't watch his streams. I'll catch his YouTubes once in a while, but yeah, I think he was just like playing the game and explaining it. And then I was working at the time, so I could only listen to what he was talking about. I couldn't visually see what the game looked like. So I was like, Core Keeper. It just sounded like a game he normally wouldn't play. So it intrigued me. So later on, I was just sitting there thinking, like for a week, I'm like, Core Keeper. I just kept forgetting to like look it up. I looked it up. I saw the box art. I was like, oh, I don't like this box art. But then I actually saw like little screenshots of what the game looked like. And I was like, oh, this looks like something I gotta try. So yeah, that's basically where I heard about it. What do I think about the graphics or the art style of the game? I would give it a 1 out of 1. I felt like I was kind of like in a super fancy Super Nintendo game. I just enjoyed the visuals. The wilderness was great. The lava area was great. I think it's like the passage at the very end was just beautiful. All of it was just like a lot of fun to look at, and I always felt like I got like a little bit of everything. Yeah, it just made me feel impressed. I remember going through on my boat in the sea area, and then I saw like the coral reefs, and I just stopped. I'm like, oh wow, those visuals are like really cool. And then there's also like little tile sets you can run into in all these different areas where it's just like, oh wow, look at that ship, or like look at that abandoned house. And then there's like cool little items and like little stories within, like just the whole style. I just felt it. Like I felt the style. It felt good. What do I think about the Core Keeper box art? ooh, this category, I actually give it a 0 out of 1 point. When I initially looked at it, it just kind of looks like a really, really young kids game, and obviously young kids can still play this, but like I just don't feel like the art style of the in-game matches that box art, that first impression. Like it just really doesn't match. I'm not like super creative, but maybe just like more pixelized version, maybe just like an in-game, yeah, like the core, how it looks in the game, just as the box art, something like that. It just looks like these mega block Lego figures with pickaxes. So like initially, if I didn't hear about this game, I would have just like saw the art and just would have scrolled by. What do I think about the music and the ambience of all the sounds in the game? I would give it a 1 out of 1. It is beautiful. Like it just gives me like goosebumps thinking about it. Some of the places it's just like really relaxing. The boss sounds are pretty cool too, or at least like the music and the ambience. I just felt no matter where I was in the world, I enjoyed the sounds that were coming into my head. It was just really well done. I liked it a lot. I feel like that's something that a lot of games just kind of glance over these days. And I really, really just enjoyed it. Honestly, I could see myself in the future just like looking up just like a soundtrack or something, just like listening to it when I work or when I'm, walking, taking a walk. It was really well done. I enjoyed it a lot. What do I think about the world building of the game? Oh, it was just great. You have like the center, you have all these different areas that you're going through. The little like characters and items give you a little bit of story. You progress pretty well in it. I felt like I was in a world. I felt it was great. I felt like I was immersed. There were some stressful parts. There were some relaxing parts. I really felt like I was thrown into a world that someone put a lot of passion and care into, and I felt it. What do I think about the items in Core Keeper? I find the items fascinating. I just feel like every single item that was dropping, they had a lot of interesting different stats. I liked how a lot of them just had a ton of stuff that it would give you, just anything from like health bonuses to like more damage. It's all these like mechanics in games where usually other games don't give you like enough of these stats and these items. These items all felt meaningful. You have different rarities. You have like different items that drop, and you go like, oh, maybe I should switch and wear that to do a different build or something like that. They did a really good job with items. Yeah, it's not even like complicated. There's not even like crafting in that kind of sense of changing the stats. They have uniques. They have like little rare ones that you can go find, stuff from bosses, stuff from like the walls, chests. Like it was just such a good amount of items. I feel like there's not even that much bloat in the items, even though there's a lot of them. They all have like a purpose or a point in the game where they feel great to get. And then even some of them are, I'm like, wow, when I replay a second or third or fourth time, I want to like try out these new items because they're gonna buff like summoning or something like that. Other than just not have enough inventory space, they all just have a purpose, and it feels good. What do I think about the inventory system in Core Keeper? This one conflicts me a lot. I give it just like straight in the middle a 0.5. So it gets points for it's really fun to upgrade. Like you actually have an item, like a bag item. That's a fun mechanic and it gives you stats. It's like that feels good. Like I said earlier, it gives you like weight to picking it up and you get more inventory space. And then also they give you a ton of little chests and boss chests and different parts of those to store stuff. But what loses half the point for me is I just feel like at this point in gaming, some sort of optional loot filter in some way, shape, or form where I don't want these particular blocks anymore. So when I'm just like digging to like craft something, I don't want like dirt blocks because I'm past that, right? Just like a button or something where I can just turn it off because it's just a little tedious to get like you just start traveling just like a bunch of stuff vacuums up into you, which is actually a really cool thing. The fact that you don't have to like click on them all, like the vacuum mechanic is good. That's like kind of like a different thing, but it's kind of a part of this. Yeah, but yeah, just the ability at this point and make it optional. I know some people just don't like it, and that's why optional would be fine. It's kind of like how there's different difficulties in game, turn it on or off. But yeah, some kind of loot filter, which they could implement, I think would make it a full 1 out of 1. So because of that, it's a 0.5. It's so conflicting because I do like the inventory system, but I just can't give it its 1. Why do I give Core Keeper a 1 out of 1 for the clicking having an important weight to it factor? The clicking always feels like necessary. Like it always feels like it does something. It doesn't do too much and it doesn't do too little. There can be games out there where like the clicking is like super tedious and you want like every click to just feel right and good. So like when you're planting in Core Keeper, just clicking on all the plants is satisfying. When you're watering them, it's satisfying. When you're using the pickaxe, I don't know, something about it, it just feels really satisfying. It's also great when you like upgrade your pickaxe and you can go faster. All the combat, the clicking for like summoning your little summons, for shooting your weapon, it just feels like it has the perfect weight to it. For the crafting section, I would give Core Keeper a 1 out of 1. It just has a lot of cool little things you can build. I'm not super creative, but I did have fun exploring almost every item you can craft. This doesn't really have a traditional weapon crafting. You can upgrade your items, which is pretty cool. You can actually upgrade any item in the game as long as you go find the certain resources. So I thought that was really cool. It took me like later in the game to realize you can do that, so that part of the crafting was good. But in general, just like the little crafting benches were a lot of fun to explore. What do I feel about like the journey or progression of the game? I actually give it a 0.8 out of 1. It does progress very nicely throughout the game as you're unlocking new areas, and then you'll find these spots where you like can't get past because you don't have like a good enough pickaxe or you didn't defeat a boss. But I feel like there was a weak spot. This is where it loses like 0.2. It's kind of the part where you unlock it was like the sea area, the wilderness, and I think the desert area. I felt like some of those areas to kind of get through were just like a little grindy. You just felt like you were kind of in them in a long time, and then out of nowhere you kind of just like get past them and get more towards like end game stuff too quickly at the last part, if that makes sense. So yeah, I give it a 0.8 out of 1. It was near perfect. There just needs to be like a little bit more in that middle game to like progress perfectly. Like it's close to perfect, like 0.8. Like it's close. Do I think levels have meaning in this particular game? It's hard to fully answer, but I do give it like a 1 out of 1. This doesn't have your traditional levels, like think like a Mario game where you're going through stages, those are levels, or like your character just leveling up. So the game does, I think like the levels are kind of just unlocking the different regions. So I think that was done very well. And if you want to go into like your character, you have the skill points, but that's not necessarily levels, but you do get item levels. And then those item levels, you can actually like reinforce any item in the game. What do I rate the skills in Core Keeper? I give these skills a 1 of 1. They have these really cool skill trees where when you're using that particular skill, you get some points, and it has like a small little tree system where if you get like 5 in the top one, you have a couple of branching paths. It's very simple, but a couple of things that I enjoy about it is they have like big impact. I feel like they're not small of percentages. Like yeah, sometimes when you only get like 1 point in them, but when you get like 5 points, they'll do good buffs and stuff like that. Like they just feel fun. They're really exciting to get. And in addition to being able to pick like little skills, you also get like a passive bonus from that particular category. So if you're cooking, you'll get a passive to cooking. If you're crafting, you'll get a passive to crafting. So there's like all these little skill points you get, and they were all a lot of fun. I wish I can unlock like every single one. That's how good that they were. Do the choices you make matter in the game? Yes, they do. I give the category a 1 out of 1. Every little item you wear, every little block you place down, every little skill point you pick, every little boss you defeat. I feel like these little choices do matter. I know there's kind of like a path you can take, but you can do creative ways and get around some of it. And I feel like that's really cool for a game. I know this is like a sandbox game, but I just enjoyed how like your little build you can make with your character, how you can switch it. You have like 3 different little outfits you can wear. You can go like super into cooking early on if you want. You can go into making like a crazy farm with like your animals and getting all those buffs. So I just felt like every little choice had good meaning. There are games where there's just like a lot of choices and stuff you can do, but it just feels like some of them are empty. In this particular game, I don't think there was anything that felt empty for like the choice you made. What do I think about the quests or side quests in this game? I give it a 1 out of 1. It doesn't have traditional quests or side quests. I would consider like the little statues to kind of give you like mini quests. They're kind of like, hey, you can craft these items, you can craft these scanners, read like what the materials are, and maybe that will answer how you get it. And then kind of like the whole main game is going through all the bosses to find those titans. So getting the merchants, figuring out how to place them. Those are all like what I consider the quests of the game, and I do think that it was done pretty well. It just kind of felt like it progressed pretty well. You would unlock a merchant, you would go out there, fight some bosses, get some pieces, and be like, oh, that's for that merchant, and then you realize you can summon the next boss or get to the next area. So I think they did that in a good way. What do I think about the bosses in Core Keeper? I give them like a 1 out of 1. They were super interesting. They were like splattered throughout the game. There were different ways to summon them. You could resummon them. They had like interesting battle mechanics. Yeah, they had a lot of cool loot. You get their little treasure chest. They had phases. The way that you had to find them. The way that you had to sometimes use different items to get them to come out. It just felt really immersive, and I enjoyed all of the bosses. Normally, I'm not a big fan of bosses because I feel like it's really easy to mess up a boss, just make it not fun for the player, but they felt all fun to me, and some of them were challenging, and some of them were not. But I think that's good. I think like a good mix. Like I normally, like I said, don't like bosses, but this game, it just did it perfectly. I liked them a lot. I liked how they looked. I liked everything about them. Do I think Core Keeper has enough rewards as you play throughout the game? I do. I would give it like a 1 out of 1 for that category. Anything from like unlocking a new crafting bench all the way up to like your little skill tree when you're using the skills, getting new items, unlocking new areas. The rewards just felt perfect. It wasn't too much and it wasn't too little. I enjoyed the rewards immensely. For the lore and the history of the game, I kind of give it, let me think about it, a 0.5 out of 1 for this particular category. You get to actually read a little bit of lore and history bits and pieces from exploring the world, but also from like the items. But that's kind of it. I don't think any of the bosses like say any real phrases or anything, so you're not picking up additional stuff there. So I just feel like it's open to be able to have more lore for it in the future. What do I think about the immersion of the game? I give it a 1 out of 1. I felt really immersed in the game, and usually how I figure this out for myself is I remember I was playing the game. I don't remember what area I was in, but I was like just really digging my teeth into it, and then someone was calling my name nearby, and I didn't know that they were there. And when they got my attention, it was as if like someone just like, it was like a horror movie, right? I just like screamed, threw everything up in the air. I was like horrified. I was so immersed in the game that I didn't even realize someone else was there. Yeah, this category definitely gets a 1 out of 1 for that. Oh, characters for Core Keeper. There's not really characters in the traditional sense, but I do give the category a 1 out of 1. I see the actual like world as its character. It's just like such a fascinating character as well, just because of all like you start in the center and then you kind of discover all the outer edges, and then it just kind of flows nicely. You feel like the world's moving with you as you play the game. It's almost like a character is in step with you as you are progressing in the game. So that's normally what I would look for in a character, like something that's interesting about it. I think the world's interesting. I want it to like progress, the characters to progress with you. The world progresses with you. It just feels like a great character. I would consider that almost the only character. I know there's bosses. I do think the bosses are interesting as well, at least the fights, but I see them slightly less than like characters. And you yourself, you can pick like different classes, but I don't really see yourself as like a huge character. The writing in the game, there's not a lot in there, and I feel like it's not the best. I would give this category like a 0.25 out of 1. You get a little bit of dialogue from like the intro cutscene, you get a little bit from the core from the center, and then you get like a little bit from the boss at the end, but it's not that type of game, but still I would give it like a 0.25. For the particular dialogue section of the game, I kind of give it also like a 0.5 out of 1. So the core talks to you a little bit, and then like the boss at the end, I don't really remember other dialogue or anything like really amazing in that department, which is, I know that's not what this game is for, but I'm just going through rating all these different categories. What do I think about the voice acting in the game? I actually will give this category, I'll give it a full 1 out of 1. I feel like the core, like just like how it sounds and how it talks to you, as well as like the end boss, even though there's not that much like voice acting or whatever, if that makes sense, if any, but just like how they sound, it's great. It fits them. I feel like it does a good job in that sense. What do I think about the like secrets in this game? I give it a 1 out of 1. There were a lot of different like items to discover. I'm actually getting ahead of myself. I don't think I've discovered all the secrets. There was one time where I was trying to figure out something. I looked it up and I was like, oh, it just would have been so much better to have naturally figured it out than to have looked it up. So I just stopped looking up all these little secrets, and I want to like figure them out, because when I run into them, they're really cool. I think one of them that stood out to me was like the passage area. I remember sitting in that area, and I'm like, ooh, it's like creepy. The ambiance, the music was great. And then all of a sudden, I had one recall little portal thing, but I had a bunch of loot that I've been collecting, so I didn't want to die, because then I would lose all the loot. And all of a sudden I just hear this like rumbling, and I'm like, okay, so I thought it was coming from like south of me, so I just start running up, And then all of a sudden I see this big thing, like black clouds with like eyes or whatever, and I'm freaking out, and I start using my like bow and arrow right there, just shooting the eyes. It stopped for a brief moment, and then I open up my inventory, and like my character's trying to move, and I'm just like trying to get out, because I'm like, I'm gonna die because I don't know what I'm running into here. So I get to a corner, I'm stuck in a corner, I see this thing coming literally on my screen, I hit the recall item, and it takes a little bit to go, and then right as it went off, like that was right there, the cloud went past, and I was like, ooh, it felt so cool. That was like, I don't know if that's necessarily a secret, but it felt like a secret to me at that point. And then I eventually went back and defeated that boss, but I didn't know about it, so like it was just such a cool moment. So yeah, there's cool secrets like that. There's also secret items, even like a small secret like mining, and then also you see a chest, and it's, oh, this is cool, I know what a chest is, and you figure out how to unlock them, you find keys, you craft them. There's, like I said, there's a lot of tile sets. Those are always cool to find. I don't think I've found them all. So yeah, every area just has these like randomized tile sets. I don't know if they're all in there, but yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna replay the game a bunch, so I'll eventually run into more secrets, and that's stuff like that people really enjoy. They're not like necessary to defeat the game, but just being able to like explore what someone's created. Like, we as players, we want to just explore that stuff, right? We want to feel like we can figure out stuff, and I think this game does it really well. Does Core Keeper have memorable moments? Yeah, I think in order for a game to be good, it has to have memorable moments. I give this category a 1 out of 1. I've already gone through the story about going into the passage for the first time. There was also like a lot of the bosses. There was the Malugaz, the Corrupted. That was my first death in the game, so I had to come to terms with that, and it was because there was a secondary boss phase. I was already super low in life, so I thought I defeated him. I think I had like a bow at that time. I was like, oh, cool. I had like 1 health bar left, and all of a sudden I saw him transform, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm probably dead here, because like the arena was already had a bunch of fire. I didn't know if it was going to despawn. I still tried. I think got the second phase down Half-Life, but I just remember that it was a good moment, and I remember something more simplistic. I remember riding around on my boat, and then I saw a bunch of these colorful coral reefs. I just stopped there, and I was just like, wow. Those look great. Those just look artistic. I just like how they look. And I actually like grabbed a couple of them. I'm like, oh wow, I can actually grab these and throw them back in my base. The last moment I remember is when I found out that you can reinforce any item just like all the way up to like the highest level, as long as you got like the materials as you progress through the game. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, I started just thinking about like different like builds or item sets I can use, because now I felt like they were all an option, where before I was like, oh well, I'm past this level, so maybe like I don't really need to use this item anymore. But it made all of the items usable in my head, and it was just like a cool, like I was like, oh wow, that's just such a good mechanic. It's just like a little moment where I'm like, I just remember thinking that. What makes randomization good in this game? Well, I would give it a 1 out of 1 for randomization. There's like all these different tile sets that you can find throughout the world, so it would be like little dungeons, and you always get like different items, sometimes good, sometimes bad. That was pretty cool. Actually, how your like world spawns or generates is technically shifted. There are some kind of like parameters where like the beginning circle is gonna be like your dirt area, and then you get to your like the forgotten ruins and the clay, and then it goes out from there. But yeah, it just has a lot of cool little randomization that makes it super replayable, and I enjoyed that part a lot. Even just like the randomization of the drops from the bosses to the monsters to like you can discover a chest while mining. Fishing also had like enough randomization. It wasn't like super overwhelming. You're not gonna go like super grindy, gotta do like a million of something to get it, but it just had the right amount. In order for a game to be good, or at least get 1 point in this category, I'd definitely give it 1 point, is to have different difficulties. I think there's like a casual, there's like a normal, I think there's a hard, and then you can also do a hardcore. I think that's fantastic. I even think like other modes are possible. Like I said, that they do update the game, but I think that's good enough. I do eventually want to try some hardcore. I'm just doing like the standard, then I'll probably try some hard, and then I'll probably try some like standard hardcore, and then hardcore. So yeah, I like how there's also the option for casual. Some people are just going to want to just play the game and not stress too much, because some of the stuff can be kind of hard. So I think that's very important for a game to have that, like these different options. It's always like a benefit to the player. Always let them customize how difficult they want something. Does Core Keeper have a good fluidness to it? I would give Core Keeper a 1 out of 1 for fluidness to it. Just like everything, when it weaves together, it just feels so like tight. It just feels good. Like everything from just like the gameplay to the mechanics to the discovery. I just really enjoy the flow of it. What's the price of Core Keeper? Oh, Core Keeper, I believe right now on Steam, if you get no deals or anything, is $19.99. This definitely gets a 1 point out of 1 in this category. That's a steal. That's such a good price point. Like it felt so good. I actually got it on like a deal or sale or something for like $11 and some change, and just honestly, it felt like I got away with a legal robbery. It's that cheap. For the next category, I like games to have a physical option. So I believe right now, as recording, you can get a physical copy for Xbox, for Switch, for PlayStation, but there's nothing for PC. And I know, like most people get digital stuff for PC. I also got it on Steam, but I like to collect physical copies of games in general. I have a lot of my old games, Super Nintendo, Xbox, N64, Dreamcast, all that stuff. I have a lot of physical copies. I like to collect it, so I would even like it just as a collectible, but obviously I would still want it to run. For Core Keeper, I just give it straight up a 1 of 1 for fun. It was just fun the whole way through. It's like subjective, but it just felt great the whole time. Is the game entertaining? Yes, I would give this game a 1 out of 1 for entertaining. I was entertained the whole time. Honestly, this is normally not my type of game, and I thought there would be parts that would be boring, but there's just like always something to do, something to discover, something to craft, something to just look at, something to battle. It just felt like it was just entertaining. I mean, it's just that plain and simple. Like I was entertained the whole time. Category of you want a game to make you think about it after you're done playing, I give it a 1 out of 1. I was just constantly thinking about like what other areas are there to discover, what can I craft next. I can't wait to see the next type of enemy. I can't wait to see the next type of plans. I wonder what the next boss is going to be like. I was just like constantly thinking about it. It was just like a lot of fun going through my work day, and then being able to just sit down and just like, I just really wanted to see what was next. It was great. For this particular category, I think a game is really good when you're so into the game that you start thinking about the game in real life, or you start telling other people and you relate them from the game to real life, if that makes sense. So I know other people have done this. I give this category 1-on-1 for Core Keeper. So I will be like working and I'll be like, I'm hungry and I'm thinking about my like personal like food buff bar. It's stupid, right? But I'm like, oh, I'm eating food and I'm like, oh cool, now my like food's fed. So you just start relating these little things in your head just because you've been playing the game a lot. You're thinking about it. You're having fun, right? You're just like whatever, doing your job, doing something boring, doing a chore, and you're relating it, right? So I just think when you start doing those things, you just know a game's good. It's just a lot of fun when you can just like incorporate like a game into real life. Yeah, obviously it feels a little silly, but I don't know. I feel like other people will relate to that. Do I think that the game has heart/passion? Yes, this game has a ton of heart and passion. I give it a 1/1. You can just feel it from the moment you're playing it. Just like everything feels like there was a lot of meticulous thought put into everything. It just feels like a crocheted game where every little weave had a meaning, and it just feels so good to play a game where everything just means something. It doesn't have to be like grandiose. There were just like small little things that felt good. I just like the visuals when you find ore just out in the wild. They're like little goo blocks that start like, it just feels like they're like goopy as you're picking them up. All like the little skill trees, how the items felt viscerally fun. I just enjoyed that part. All the little items, the areas, the personalities of everything for a game that just doesn't write often or speak often to you. They really do the show don't tell very well. Yeah, I wish I can give it like more points, but I'm gonna stick at 1 being the most. But yeah, it's just a lot of heart and passion. I like appreciate the minds that came up with this game. You can feel it. How did I feel when I finished Core Keeper? So I give this category a 1/1, and I want to talk a little bit about this particular thing. Like the game doesn't really end. If you, I would just consider like you defeat all the bosses and secret bosses. The game is kind of done right there. You can still play in the world. So there are moments where you read a book and you go through the whole book, and maybe it's a series, maybe it's an individual book, maybe it's a comic book, and then you get to the end, and then like you read the last page, and you just sit there and you're just like, I know people will know what I'm talking about. You have that feeling where it's like, wow, I can never like read this for the first time again, but like you feel a little bit of happiness. You enjoyed it. You get a little bit of sadness. It's like bittersweet, right? Because it's like, well, it's done, and I've really enjoyed this thing, but it had to have like an end. That particular feeling is how I felt with Core Keeper. I kind of went like, wow, like a game is good when you sit there and it's bittersweet, and you just go like, wow, I'm jealous of someone else that can play this game for the first time. It is still a good game to replay, but yeah, I definitely give for that a 1/1 for the category of how I felt after I was done defeating that last boss. What makes Core Keeper a game that I would want to play 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from now if there were no updates? I actually give this particular category a 1/1. There's just like a lot of cool small stuff to bite into in this game, from trying different builds. There's different difficulties. There's different items. You can craft wacky bases. Maybe you want to explore the whole world. Maybe you want to make like a castle or a cool base. Maybe you just want to try hardcore. Maybe you want to try a run with like no items, only these types of items. Try out this set this time. See where the random stuff spawns. Yeah, it just fits it so well. I honestly, there's not that many games out there that I could see playing 1 year, 5 year, or 10 years from now. Like I said, with no updates. This one does get updates, but even with no updates, I would still play it. Like I can picture myself playing it, and that's a great thing to find. Did I want more of this game when I was like either playing it or done playing it. Yes, 1 out of 1. As I was playing it, I knew at some point there would be some natural conclusion to the game. The game is really good, and you just want like more of it. And sometimes I think that like when second versions or third versions of games come out, or even updates, sometimes it goes down like the wrong path. I think for like what I'm talking here is you just kind of want almost more of the same. You don't want too many changes. They can almost like reskin the game, and a lot of people would just play games like that. So I think that's like what Core Keeper is. As I was playing it, I was like, oh, I just want more. I know I still have more to discover, but I know at some point it's going to hit an end. So yeah, if you want more of a game, that's when you know it's a good one.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Good night.